Hello and welcome everyone to this edition of the MLB podcast. So before I get started, I'm just going to do a rapid fire NBA playoff picks since the NBA playoffs begin tomorrow. So let's do Western Conference first, 1 through 8. Rockets T-Wolves. I'm going to have the Rockets in 4. They've played so well this year. They won 66 games. James Harden's going to win the MVP. The T-Wolves, after Jimmy Butler got hurt, they almost fell out of the playoff race. They had to win the last game of the year against Denver to get in. And look, they're just glad to be here. They've not been here since 2004, back when Kevin Garnett won the MVP. They're happy to be here. So, Rockets in 5. Next up, 2 versus 7, Warriors Spurs. Now this is a rematch of last year's conference finals where Kawhi was playing great for half. The Spurs were up by 20-something. They thought maybe they can win that series. Kawhi gets hurt. Warriors rally back to win that game. I think they won that series in 4. It was not close at all after Kawhi went down. There was no Kawhi, but there's also no Steph Curry. So the Warriors, Kevin Durant kind of had to carry the offense down the stretch, and the Warriors have not been themselves recently. They've lost more games than usual, but it's the playoffs now. I think they're rested. I think they're ready to go. The Spurs don't have many options. Warriors in 4. Now it's time for 3 versus 6. Which is Blazers and Pelicans. The Pelicans, after DeMarcus Cousins went down late in January, it looked like, I don't know if they'll be in the playoffs or not. Anthony Davis has been an MVP candidate this year. Damian Lillard's also an MVP candidate as well. The Blazers about 4 weeks ago, were the hottest team in the NBA. And right now they've fallen a little bit down the stretch. They've cooled off significantly. I think will be a good series. I think there'll be a lot of duels. But at the end, I'm going to say the Blazers win. I feel like for one, Damian Lillard has CJ McCollum, an extra scorer, and Anthony Davis is kind of there to carry the Pelicans. I'm going to say Blazers in 6, maybe 7. And Thunder Jazz. So the Thunder, it's funny. A week ago, it wasn't certain, and they're the 4 seed right now. It was not certain at all that they'd be in the playoffs. There was some uncertainty. They had to beat the Rockets, and they did that, and they've been in. And Russell Westbrook, once again, has averaged a triple-double, really chased stats near the end of the season. And we know what playoff Westbrook's like last year. Now as Paul George this year. Last year was clear. He was carrying the team. There was no question about that. This year, it's different. And you look at the Jazz. The Jazz, who for a while were 10 games below 500, they caught fire. They've been red hot, had one hot stretch, then had another one. And since then, they've gone from a team to look like they'll miss the playoffs, kind of a lost year, to now they're in the middle of the conference. And Donovan Mitchell, a big reason why is Donovan Mitchell is definitely a Rookie of the Year candidate. Now, I think it goes to Ben Simmons, but I think Donovan Mitchell comes in second place, no question. I think it's going to be a close race, and I'm sure some people will actually vote for Mitchell. I don't have a vote. I don't know who's going to win. It's going to be close. Probably Simmons, but this could be a good series. This really could be a good series. 2 teams that, for the Thunder, really, they don't want to lose in the first round again, and they'll have to face the Rockets again. Kind of a disappointing year for them, somewhat. They managed to get the 4 seed, and this Western Conference is not as strong as it used to be. We have a great team in Houston, a very good Warriors team, which is not very good by their standards. And then you have the best Blazers team in a long time. And the Pelicans are back in the playoffs. I think they're glad to be back. They missed it the last 2 years. And remarkable without DeMarcus Cousins. So the way I see it, it's going to be close. But you have Russell Westbrook on your team. I say the Thunder win this series. So, second round, Thunder versus Rockets. And the 2-3 matchup will be Warriors versus Blazers. Okay, Eastern Conference. So, 1-8, the Raptors. So, they really, they had their best year in franchise history. And they changed the way they played this year. DeMar DeRozan's gotten better at passing and shooting. Still not nowhere close to being that great at shooting, just better at it, more of a threat. And Kyle Lowry has sacrificed his own role to make the team better, and they have the bench. That's their strength. The Raptors, this may be their best team ever. But when you look at this series, if they win, they could be facing LeBron, and LeBron James could very well ruin the Raptors season again. And you look at the Wizards, so this is a down year for them. Wall got hurt early February, late January, early February, missed about 9 weeks. Beal carried them down that stretch, and for a while they had stretches where, wow, Beal's a good player, they're winning a lot of games. Wow, look at this. Wait till Wall comes back. Other times, they clearly miss Wall. Beal's taking way too many shots. Beal's missing a lot of shots down the stretch. The Wizards are losing games, and they've fallen all the way down to the 8th seed in the conference. Very disappointing. Now, when you talk about 8 seeds, sometimes they're this team that wins 36 games or whatever, doesn't even win 40, much less 500, and they get blown out in 4, and it's not even close. In fact, you wonder why the playoff system is so big and why these bad teams are in the playoffs. But this is not the case. This is a good 8 seed. Unfortunately, they had tough luck this year. And for the Wizards, in the past, they've always been a mid-level conference team. 2015 was their year. They almost beat the Hawks. 2006, last year in 17, they very nearly beat the Celtics. They've been an Eastern Conference dark horse at times in the season. You're like, who's a team that could possibly win the East that's a potential dark horse? The Wizards. And this is not the case this year. And this could be, the Raptors are much better than they were last year. Now, what version are they? They're much better than they were 3 years ago against the Wizards. Okay, they're not going to play like that. They're not going to flame out. Are they as good as they were 2 years ago? Maybe. Probably a little bit better than that. This is the best Raptors team ever. And they cannot lose in the first round of the playoffs. I think it'll be a good competitive series. We'll see how Wall does. Is rusty. So that is hard to say. But in the end, the Raptors win 5-6 games. And finally, 2 versus 7, the Celtics versus Bucks. So the Celtics, we knew right away their season would not be the same. Gordon Hayward went down on the first night of the year. I think within the first 6 minutes of the season, didn't even make it through a quarter. Then Kyrie Irving, who people talked about as MVP candidate, has been hurt, had that knee injury, thought it would be back in time for the playoffs, or at least close to it. Instead, is having surgery again. Kyrie's out for the playoffs. So, when you look at what the Celtics have, they lost their best perimeter defender. And keep in mind, Marcus Smart's also out as well. So, you've lost your best perimeter defender and your 2 best scorers. So, who do you lead the score on now? Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Now, Tatum is definitely a Rookie of the Year candidate, has played very well for a rookie. It's hard to say for sure. They're relying on, seems like, young players to step up the scoring. They don't have that scorer like what Kyrie is, who can just give them 40, carry the offense. They don't have that. They'll have to spread the ball around. They do have defense. We know that. And they're playing against a Milwaukee team and the Bucks. And look, it seemed like they failed to make progress, even though Giannis, every year takes a step forward. Like you look at the Bucks 3 years ago in the playoffs. They're a nice, pleasant surprise. Glad to be there. Giannis was just beginning to be a starter and a rotation player. Last year, Giannis was a star. This year, a superstar. Giannis has gotten better, but it seems like the Bucks have not. Part of the reasons are Jabari Parker was not there in the playoffs. Jabari Parker missed about half of the year, and then Jason Kidd was fired, and Joe Prunty took over. And for a while, it looked like, wow, great coaching change. Wow, look at the Bucks. It looks like they're really catching fire. I don't know. It seems like they're just an okay team this year. It's hard to say what they are. They're facing another second round loss. But here's the thing with the Celtics, it seems like. Last year, they looked like one of the worst 1 seeds in recent memory. This year, they've been high. They've had some good, very good years. Very good, but not great years. We know Brad Stevens is a great coach, has a game plan. So we'll see how far they can go. It's hard to say what happens. This is the series where you almost feel like picking upset. The Bucks are going to come out. The Bucks are going to win some games this series. And if the Celtics lose this series, it will not be a complete shocker. It's hard to say. I feel very, very tempted to pick the Bucks. I feel like they can win this series. And, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to say the Bucks win this series in 7. I just think Giannis in the playoffs is just going to be so great. It's just going to be too much for the Celtics. Bucks in 7, but the Celtics can also win 7. Very close series. This series could go either way, in my opinion. So finally now, let's go down to 3-6, the 76ers and the Miami Heat. So the 76ers, interesting story. They caught fire late in the year. And despite that, I think they've won 6 of those games without Joel Embiid. I think is going to miss game 1. We'll see about game 2. But it's been Ben Simmons so far is going to win Rookie of the Year. They've made so much progress. You think about 2 years ago, started the 15-16 season. I think they lost 0-26 to start the year. That was just 2 years ago. That is fairly recent. Trust the process. That phase went on for 4 years. And you know what this team kind of seems like? Maybe the Thunder from 2010, 2011, a team that really is terrible for a year, and then they just catch fire all of a sudden. They make it to the playoffs. They go way ahead of schedule. Look, if the Sixers were in this position this time next year, I'd be okay with that. I think that's good progress. Even worse than this next year. I thought if they just make it to the playoffs, fine. If they don't, that's okay. This is just a year about progress. They've gone way ahead of schedule. And look, they're playing a Miami Heat team that was, again, they have Eric Spoelstra as their coach. That's a good team, well coached. It's hard to say what they can do. I don't think they have a great scorer that can just take over. I think it will be a good series. I'm going to say the Sixers win this. They're so red hot. If their winning streak ends in this playoff series, that's fine. I think they win this series. They're a good team. Sixers win this series in 6. And now that leads us to Cavs Pacers. So Cavs Pacers. So this is LeBron James in the playoffs for the 13th year in a row. And the Cavs, who were kind of really, February is when they hit the all-time low point, had to reboot their team, had to completely start over. And they've been one of the highest teams in the league recently. LeBron James should win the MVP, may not. It may go to Harden, better team, and this may be Harden's year. Harden has had a lot of second and third place finishes. It will be very interesting. For the Pacers, they're actually better than they were last year. Victor Oladipo is going to win Most Improved Player of the Year. He's been great for them this year. LeBron James, interesting streak. I don't think he's lost a first round playoff game in over 5 years. I think he's won 20 in a row or something like that. So I think that streak ends. But this is the Cavs. This is LeBron James. This is the best player ever in NBA history. Right there with Michael Jordan. Now, LeBron does not have much of a supporting cast. Has clearly carried the team this year. Clearly their best player. No question about that. Clearly who they depend on the most. Now, the Cavs may have some solid role players, but it is not enough without LeBron. And this is LeBron's series. LeBron's going to do just like he did last year to the Pacers. The Cavs win in 5. So the second round, we have Cavs Raptors, and it looks like Bucks Sixers. So here's an interesting thing that's going to happen. The Eastern Conference this year, for a change, is kind of wide open. You have the Raptors, who, with their playoff history of always losing in the first round, or not the first round, losing playoff series. They just can't get over that hump. They can't get to the finals. They can't get to the conference finals. First round playoff losses. This is their 5th year in the playoffs in a row, and we know their playoff history, right? Playing against a Wizards team that is one of the better 8 seeds we've seen in a while. So when you look at that, that's potential upset. You could see an upset in that series. You talk about the Celtics, who do not have a primary scorer in this series. Again, they're a 2 seed, but they're not the best 2 seed out there. They don't look like the best 2 seed. They're not like Golden State, who is one of the better teams, one of the best teams in league history the past few seasons, past 3 or 4 years, but is down for them. They're much worse than the Warriors. You could make an argument, could they beat the Blazers? The Western Conference, once again, is more talented this year, but the Eastern Conference is wide open. And now you have, say, the Bucks, who are playing that 2-7 matchup. The Bucks can win. And then you have the 3-6. You have the Sixers back in the playoffs. Don't have much playoff experience, so that'll be interesting to see. Against a fairly good Heat team. Much better than last year. They're able to put it together in a full season. No, they're not a 60-win team. But no, they're not a 20-loss team. They're kind of they're kind of in the middle of what they were in the tale of 2 halves of last year's. So you look at that, the Cavs, who it's not really their fault. They won 50 games. That could be good enough to get them a 2 seed, but the Sixers were so red hot that they caught them for this 3 seed, and most importantly, the Cavs lost that game to the Sixers. So that's an interesting outcome. So the East is wide open. I don't know who's going to win the East. The best bet would be LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're the best pick but it's no guarantee. They might play the Raptors, and this time the Raptors might be better than they were the last 2 years, much better, and actually have an opportunity to even win that series. And look, LeBron James is not losing the first round. That has never happened the way he's playing so far this year. That will not happen. So when you look at those, the Eastern Conference is wide open this year. It is kind of a free-for-all. You just look at what's going to happen. We could potentially see the Bucks in the conference finals as a 7 seed. I think they're a dangerous 7 seed. So when you look at it, the Western Conference top 3 is stronger than the Eastern Conference. Okay? But when you look at the bottom 3, 7, 8, the East is so much more of a threat. Partly since their opponents aren't as good. But I think they're more talented, like the T-Wolves. They're a talented 8 seed, but they're also lucky to be here. If they would have lost to that Nuggets the other night, they wouldn't be here. So in some ways, the season's a disappointment, but also that's an accomplishment. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the playoffs. But I'm not a basketball expert. I was just saying my opinions. Now it's time for baseball. Sorry that was a little long. I thought I'd go over it briefly. So here we are talking about Major League Baseball. So when you look at it, you talk about what's going on this year. And there are a lot of big stories. Shohei Ohtani, who has shown this year, so far, small sample size, and is pitching again this Sunday, and had a bases clearing triple last night, and hit 3 home runs the week before, prior to that dominant start. It's showing that it doesn't matter, is doing both ways. It's proving that maybe it can be done. Now, granted, is not hitting 4 days a week, and hitting as a pitcher is not hitting every day, including days that he's pitching. Might pitch, take a day off, hit for 3 days, take another day off. So the pattern has been Shohei starts on Sundays, whether that was against Oakland and against Oakland again. This time will be against Kansas City. So starting every Sunday, and so far has been great pitching. And this story may actually work. Now it's a small sample size. This experiment has gone on for 2 weeks. Next week, Shohei could go 1 for 12 at the plate, and maybe he gives up 5 runs in 4 innings this week, and it's not very good. So this is really a week. Every week that you see Ohtani is kind of an event, whether it's hitting, when he hit that home run off Kluber, or his pitching, retired the first, I believe 8, was perfect through 6. I think had 11 strikeouts, one of the more dominant pitching performances of the year. It's an event. And the rest of the Angels, as we're going to talk about them too. It's not just Shohei Ohtani. The Angels have 11 wins this year. 11-3. Now, will they sustain that? I don't know. I don't know if they'll win the West, but I think they're a dangerous wild card team. It's hard to say. It is early on. And when you look at their rotation, it is all Shohei Ohtani. They don't really have pitching outside of that. They've had injuries this year. They're trying out new options. Obviously, Garrett Richards has shown dominance in the past at times. Could be a good 2-starter. So when you look at what they have, that could be very interesting. And yesterday, I was listening to this yesterday. It was the Ringer MLB show, and they were talking a lot about Shohei Ohtani. And they're wondering, is this the way he's going to play all year? Now, it's early on, so will Shohei get more playing time instead of pitching once a week? Strictly once a week, be part of a 5-man rotation where, let's say, he pitches 2 times a week at times. So it's a strict 1-5 schedule, pitches every 5 or 6 days, and hits every game. We'll see. That'll be interesting to see really how much he actually plays. But for the Angels this year, I was looking through before, and they're ranked first in pretty much every offensive category. Average, runs. Their offense is off to a great start this year. And what I mentioned earlier, the rotation, I guess it's a little bit of a concern. Still is a concern. It's hard to say after Ohtani, since Ohtani is kind of carrying the rotation this year. Has definitely put up the best numbers for them in the rotation so far now. For the rest of the year, that'll be interesting to see really who settles in. Again, said earlier, they've had injuries. We're waiting to see what Garrett Richards can show. And the rest of the offense, you look at that, they have some guys, they just got Ian Kinsler back last night, hit a home run on his first pitch back. Mike Trout, obviously. We know about Trout. We've talked about this a lot of times. Is an MVP candidate. We know that. And Justin Upton seems to be hitting well recently. And then you have Albert Pujols. So when you watch him play, it's not that it's not that his timing, well, it's not that his eye has declined. Still has great vision. Still has the same approach at the plate as say he does when he was in St. Louis. It's just that it seems like when you get older, you start to slow down. Your body doesn't move as fast, so cannot hit the ball as well. Pujols has been steady so far, which is what they need. Got in better shape so could play first to get Ohtani at bats. So that has helped. So their offense is much improved from what it was last year. And it's the best in Major League Baseball. It's that good. Now, can they sustain it? I think they can. I think their offense will be really good. I think they still need to figure out their pitching rotation. But what you saw, they're off to an 11-3 start. So again, they've gotten a good head start early on. So let's say they play 500 for a few weeks. They're still 8 games above 500 going into May, mid-May, even for a month. So if they can play just a little bit above 500 the rest of the year, let's say they play 10 games over 500 the rest of the year, they're more likely than not a wild card team. So they've gotten themselves in a good position so far. They just need to keep playing the way they're playing, and they'll be fine. I think they are a playoff team. So another series that went down this week, Red Sox Yankees. So what happened this week with the Red Sox and Yankees was it was the first series of the year. It was a rivalry. There was a lot of moments. On Tuesday night, the Red Sox beat the Yankees 14-1. Betts at that grand slam. They jumped all over. It was supposed to be Sale versus Severino. Severino did not pitch well, and then the bullpen had even more meltdowns. So it was 14-1. On Wednesday night, the Yankees jumped out ahead. Maybe that's a good sign for Gary Sanchez, who's been one of the worst hitters in baseball so far this year. Really seemed like he broke out in that game. And that was good for them. That was good progress for Gary, seemed to get the bat going. I think it was 8-1. I think JD Martinez had a grand slam that game. But the event that went out to the most, I think the Yankees won that game 10-6. It was a 4-hour game. Red Sox, Yankees, typical 4-hour games, long, grinded out battles. Well, there's a play at second base, a slide. That was, say, 3 or 4 years ago. That would have been legal, but they changed the rule so where you can't target a fielder, someone throwing, you have to slide into the base. You can't go outside of the base direction. You can't target a infielder. Well, apparently a borderline illegal slide, I don't know, kind of caused the benches to clear a little bit. It wasn't really a full-on brawl. And then Joe Kelly, who hit, it was Tyler Austin with a 98-mile-per-hour fastball. And I was watching after the game, MLB Network. They were showing kind of a diamond demo-like thing. They had Pedro Martinez on, who is an expert in that area, has been charged multiple times, whether intentional or not. And what they showed is they I think they showed 4 pitches. I think Kelly, who can throw really hard, one of the hardest throwers in the game, can throw triple digits. I think threw an inside fastball, like, okay, kind of warning. And then I think they showed through a couple, I believe it was slider, change-up pitches in the dirt. So, okay, maybe they're not getting him. And then drilled him with about a 98-mile-per-hour fastball. And Austin, while I was watching this live, I watched most of that game, was walking to the mound and took his helmet off, threw the bat down, charged the mound. And when you saw that, it was a brawl. Benches clearing brawl, which, look, the Yankees and Red Sox, they've done that in the past. This is no surprise. I think this is just part of the rivalry. But when you look at that slide before, it was not to start a fight, really. It was not a rivalry play. The reason why that happened was trying to break up a double play, and that play, which was not reviewable since Holt didn't throw it. She's like, okay, maybe not the best slide, controversial. But then that started that brawl. And look, you're going to get suspended. Kelly 6, Austin 5. You're going to get suspended, which, again, since they do play, Joe Kelly probably plays about 1 in every 3 games to a little bit more. Tyler Austin is a bench player. Does play some, doesn't play some. So they're going to miss almost a week worth of action right there. Of course, they are appealing. So that's what happened. And then you see what happens there. And then Thursday night, Porcello was dominant at a no-hitter through 6, but we want to go to the first inning of that game. Hanley Ramirez gets drilled, right? Had to leave the game. It was against Sonny Gray, who does not throw the hardest, is not the type of guy you think would drill someone. They were starting to wonder, is that a coincidence, or is this payback? And look, I understand the fans weren't happy, Hanley wasn't happy, had to leave the game. But since then, there's no other incidents. I don't think anyone else was hit by a pitch that game. It kind of went away. So there you go. And anyways, the Red Sox won that game. Porcello was dominant. And so far, going into that series and after that series, before that series, the Red Sox were a better team. That was clear early on. They were a better team throughout the year. And now, during that series, so there was no close classic games that series. Game 1 was a complete blowout, 14-1. It was clear from that early on. Game 2 looked like a blowout again. Yeah, the Red Sox chipped in, hit a grand slam. That made it a lot more interesting. Otherwise, it would have been a blowout again. But it was a semi-close game, long game, rivalry type game, brawl. Game 3, the Red Sox clearly outplayed the Yankees. Porcello did not allow a hit through 6 innings, and granted, there was a rain delay, so if it did take 4 hours, it ended about 11 o'clock last night, then you might be misinformed. It took about 3, took about average pace, a little bit above. I don't know what the average game time is in Major League Baseball. It's changed a little bit over the years. Sometimes it's been a little over, sometimes a little under. Right around 3 hours. So it was an average pace game. And we saw what happened there. The Red Sox outplayed them that game, and give the Yankees credit. They're down 6-0. Gary Sanchez hit a bases clearing triple or double, and the game became more interesting. But Kimbrel came in, I think, struck out 2 people. Classic dominant Kimbrel, basically put away the game. That was it. So once they put in Kimbrel, so the Yankees kind of too little, too late, made that game interesting. But before that series, it was clear the Red Sox are better. Again, during that series, the Red Sox outplayed them. And now after, the Red Sox are clearly better. And I know it's early in the year. They're going to play each other. Let's say they play each other 3 more times. They're going to play each other 16 more times throughout the rest of the year. And so far, the Red Sox have a head start. They're 10-2, while the Yankees are 5-6. So that could make the difference. The Red Sox have a head start over the Yankees. And when you look at the rest of the division, Baltimore, no, not this year. Toronto, hard to say. Tampa, no. So far, I still think these are the 2 best teams in the division, and there you go. But the Red Sox are clearly right now the best team in the AL East, but they'll play each other more. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So, what are the Red Sox strengths this year? So, Chris Sale's off to a great start. David Price has pitched well. Now, I forgot to mention this, but in that game, Game 2, David Price pitched only 1 inning. Apparently, what they said is it was due to cold. The game was in the 40s, I believe, and had to come out. And we don't know for sure what happened. But I think it was a precautionary reason. Maybe the hand or something was not good at adjusting to the cold weather and caused numbness or whatever, or some sort of hand pain. And they removed Price, who has been good on the year until then. So the Red Sox basically didn't have a starter in Game 2. So they went with their best rotation so far. Okay. Sale was very good in Game 1. Porcello was great. They did just what they needed to do. So that rotation's good. Now they're figuring out Eduardo Rodriguez is starting to come back into form. Their 4-5 is not completely decided yet. And they do have a notable injury, Xander Bogaerts, who, it was funny, he was against Tampa last Sunday, I think, was chasing the ball into the dugout, apparently slid into the dugout, apparently. And they say it's not that severe, 10 to 7 days, so could be back, or 10 to 14 days, could be back within the next week or so, a little bit more, so could have been a lot worse, but was off to such a great start. So the Red Sox potentially lost their best hitter so far, without the foreseeable future for the next few weeks. They're without Pedroia already. Hanley Ramirez was off to a good start once again, looked like was having a nice bounce back year. Got hit, might miss a game or 2, hard to say. So you're without Pedroia, Bogarts, and Ramirez. Pedroia is going to be out until May at least, and Bogarts later in April. So you've lost three important pieces so far already, and technically four since JD Martinez is not. Yes, did at that grand slam, but is still off to a slow start. Needs to get that average up. Is not anywhere near that D-backs pace. But still, overall, Mookie Betts looks like an AL MVP candidate already. You look at these stats, I read them off Fangraphs or whatever, they were talking about on the broadcast. Mookie Betts might be the hardest person in the league to strike out this year. So let's say you throw him 50 pitches and he takes 50 swings. Takes 50 swings, might swing and miss at one, basically. Betts is very hard to get out. It looks like is looking like an MVP candidate once again. So you have Betts out there. So the Red Sox, I feel very good about them so far. Bullpen good, starting rotation good. At least first three. That's enough to get you a great head start in the playoffs. Offense good, and look, the Red Sox, as of right now, they look like the division favorites. They're the best team in the American League, other than the Angels. Now, is this going to stay that way? I don't know. I don't think so. The Red Sox and Angels could very well play each other in that wild card game. But they're so far definitely the two best teams in the American League right now. And the Yankees. So for the Yankees, people have talked about that being a concern. It has been a concern at times. Pitching was an issue for them. It was clear that series, they allowed 14 runs. So that's 12, 26. That's over 8 runs per game in that 3 series. They did not pitch well at all. Now, game 2, they won. Since they got off to such a great start. Severino so far has been good this year. Obviously was not very good in that start against the Red Sox. Tanaka's not off to a good start at all. Tanaka has been down. Now, Tanaka throughout his career has been dominant at times. Got off to a great start in his career. Has had some poor starts. Has had some dominant starts. Inconsistent. Very good last year in the playoffs. That has not carried over so far this year. Tanaka's down and still struggling. And then Gray, who did not pitch very well at all. Gray's been down. CC went on the DL. They don't know how long he'll be out for. That happened about a week ago, so I don't know quite when he'll be back. Hopefully a few weeks. So their rotation's a little bit of a concern right now. That bullpen, I looked it up, whether it's Canley, Betanzas, Robertson, all of them have had a bad outing at some point or another. And you want to go back to the Yankees, back what they did last week against the Orioles. They lost Thursday. Last Thursday was a 4-game series. Friday, they had a bad extra innings loss. They burnt through that bullpen. I think they used the whole bullpen. Tired, clearly. And then they won last Saturday. But last Sunday, it was basically a repeat of Friday. They had a 5-0 lead, and they blew that. And they lost in extra innings once again. I believe it went 14 on Friday, 12 on Sunday. So they clearly were worn out. Going to Boston, did not have a very good homestand. Okay, they did play well against Tampa Bay, but the last 2 series, the Yankees have not played very well. Obviously, the bullpen has lost them 2 games in that series alone, and they've not pitched that well. And Giancarlo Stanton, who started better that Boston series, hit terrible against the O's, had 2 5-strikeout games, which I've seen, which they showed me that number. And Judge, I think Judge is hitting. Gregorius, if you voted for the All-Star game right now, Didi would be the AL starting shortstop as of right now. But for the Yankees, it's inconsistency. Really, their pitching has been a big concern this year. And again, it's early. If you say the season ended today, number 1, the Red Sox are clearly better than the Yankees. The Red Sox and Angels are the 2 best teams in the American League. The Yankees missed the playoffs. But we're not even a tenth of the way there. We're not even 10% of the way done. We got a long ways to go. The Yankees will turn it on. We'll see how well they play this weekend. They're playing the Tigers this weekend. It gets significantly easier. That's an easy stretch, playing possibly the worst team in baseball last year and a potential team that loses 100 games this year. It's getting better. We'll see how well the Yankees play next week. That will be interesting. but they're down right now. They're hitting a slow stretch. And at the beginning of the year, when slumps happen or bad play happens, now if the Yankees played a series like that, say against the White Sox in the middle of July, and they lost 2 out of 3, people wouldn't notice as much. But this was against the Red Sox in Fenway Park. A lot of media coverage was on TV every night. ESPN on Tuesday, so national audience. MLB Network on Wednesday, and MLB Network on Thursday. MLB Network showcase games, which make it even more national. So that series was well seen. People saw throughout the country and throughout baseball that the Red Sox were better than the Yankees. That was shown true in that series is so far this year. Now, in a week from now, will the Red Sox be better than the Yankees? Probably, at least overall record-wise. In a month from now, who knows? How will it look in July? How will it look in August? They're going to play each other 17 more times. So you look at it one series at a time. I think they're playing each other again in May. What happens between now and then? What happens between now and when they play each other, say, in June, July, August, September? So we'll see. So I'm going to pay attention to both teams. It'll be interesting to see where both teams are at when they face each other once again. Okay, so in the National League, the best team in the National League right now is the New York Mets. And what they are, what they do is they lead. They're one of the best pitching teams and great pitching right now. Great pitching. Great bullpen, great starting rotation. Okay? Everyone, Syndergaard so far been quite good this year. Now is not dominant, has been pretty good, not great, but that's okay. DeGrom has been very good so far this year. So has Matz. Matz has been good too. They just recalled Zach Wheeler. And also, who's the other one I'm thinking? Oh, yeah, of course, Matt Harvey, who has pitched well so far. Is pitching tomorrow against the Brewers in that Sunday night game. Pitched quite well too. Pitched fairly well, not great. Harper beat him, obviously. But so far, the Mets are the best team in the National League. And it's pitching. I think they're ranked first in ERA. And their bullpen's great too. They have 2 starters in that, Seth Lugo and Robert Gsellman. Familia's locked down every save. The Mets also lead the league in saves, so that we know that bullpen's good. And that's just been the way it's been so far. I think they're 10-1 now. So they took 2 out of 3 against the Cardinals to start the year out. And they had some snow issues. But you go back to last week against the Nationals. Going into that series, and we can mention the Nationals too, but we weren't sure which team was best. They came in, they won Thursday. Cespedes hit that grand slam. They won that Thursday against them. And then they won again on Saturday. They had some comebacks, right? And then Sunday, that big game, they fell behind. And look, Egon hit that big grand slam. They win the extras, and that bullpen was great for them. As well as the Nationals bullpen pitched that game, the Mets bullpen just pitched a little bit better. They were the first one. The Mets were the first team to score that inning. They had that sweep in Washington, and yeah, they went down to Miami. They played fairly well there. I think they had a few comeback wins. They swept the Marlins. So when you look at those sweeps, you look at who they played this year. Cardinals, okay, wild card contender. So maybe you got a head start in the wild card being the Cardinals. Maybe they'll come back to haunt the Cardinals. You've so far beaten the Mets, or swept the Nationals, swept the Marlins. This week you got the Brewers, another potential team that you could be chasing for the wild card. And when you look at what they've done this year, it is that. And for the first time in a long time, that rotation is all together. Now, how long will they stay healthy? Syndergaard and DeGrom. When you put both of those two together, Syndergaard 16, DeGrom 17. One of them was hurt. And then you put both of them together in 15. They're both a key part of that rotation. And obviously we know Harvey's story the last 2 years, injuries and ineffectiveness. But when you look at that, you see what's going on. Really, you have those two. They're going to win a lot of games. Both of them will get some Cy Young votes. Matz has struggled to stay healthy throughout his career. It will be very interesting to see what you can do with Matz for a full season, since Matz was called up 2 years ago. was obviously pitching the World Series, or 3 years ago, pardon me, and then has been hurt. And Matz is good too. He pitched very well his last start. We got to see Matz for a full year. Harvey so far has looked good. We don't need Harvey to be 2013 or even 2015. Much better, a lot closer to 2015 than the last 2 years. But doesn't need to be 13. Doesn't need to be the best pitcher in baseball, like we might have thought for 4 months. We just need Harvey to be good. We just need Harvey to get them some wins. We need Harvey to be steady. Zach Wheeler. Could we finally see a full season of Zach Wheeler for the first time since 2014 or maybe ever? So that full rotation's back together. And then they signed Jason Vargas, who has been hurt so far. It's kind of a weird injury. Broke his glove side hand. So the rotation has some depth. Obviously Gesellman and Lugo have both been starters with mixed results. So you have those two guys in the bullpen. You have Familia. And you have a new manager, Mickey Callaway, who I don't think I've seen the video yet, but I heard of a story. It was kind of a funny story, forgot how to do a double switch or something from being a pitching coach. And look, just the way that was in the middle of that series that they got swept, and seems like they have a good manager, good pitching coach. A-Rod mentioned that on Sunday Night Baseball. Dave Island was the pitching coach of the Yankees when they won it all, and of the Royals. So they have a very good pitching coach. Seemed like two good guys, and Callaway, obviously that pitching coach in Cleveland, worked with Kluber and Carrasco a lot. So they definitely have guys who know how to handle pitchers for sure with that rotation. And in terms of offense of the Mets, now look. I looked this up. I was not surprised to see that at all. They're going to be a very slow team. There's no question about that. Whether you look at StatCast, whether you just use the eye test, whether you know how fast each guy is. I mean, look, they're not going to run at all. We have Adrian Gonzalez playing first, Asdrubal Cabrera playing second, Todd Frazier. You look at their outfield, Bruce. They're going to be a slow team. And they've not been dominating. It's just been their pitching. And now you got to get Cespedes going. Yes, has had some good moments, but other than that, has really not hit right this year. Yes, you do have Conforto back way earlier than expected. From what I heard, that freak shoulder injury, thought won't be back until May. Came back way earlier than expected. Basically missed 2 series, missed only a week of the season, missed only a very small portion to what people thought. Some people thought would miss almost 20% of the season, or even, who knows, maybe even close to a third of the season. Missed a very small portion. And when you look at that Mets lineup, they've been timely. They've done clearly enough to win. It hasn't always been great, but it's good enough where they are right now. And their rotation ERA, it's not going to stay at 2.5 all year. It's not going to be this dominant. They're not going to allow 2 runs every game. But if it's good and the offense is solid, they're going to be in the wild card chase. I think the Nationals will catch them eventually, whether that's next week, whether that's in a few weeks, but they do have a big head start on that Nationals, one with that sweep. And the Nationals are 2-2 in their last 4. The Mets are 3-0. They're playing the Brewers this weekend. The Mets are way ahead of everyone right now, and their best hitter so far is Asdrubal Cabrera. No, is not going to hit 300. Is not going to hit 360 this year. But their offense is just enough to win. They have, again, middle-aged guys, kind of even older, late 20s, early 30s type guys. The Mets are good so far. Now, are they going to stay the best team in the National League? They don't have really incredible talent. Especially on their offense. They do have a good head start in the wild card. They're already 11-1, 10-1 right now. 11-1 right now. So they have a good head start. Let's say they play 5 games above 500 for the rest of the year. They're already in good track to win 90 games. So they've got themselves. They've done the opposite of. They have not dug themselves a hole. They're in good shape right now. And no, they're not going to win 100 games the way it looks like they're playing right now. So the other best team in the National League is the Pittsburgh Pirates, which when you look at what they're doing, it's kind of different, really. They're great at hitting. They have the best offense, one of the very best offenses in baseball. Now, can they sustain that? I don't know. Maybe it looks like Gregory Polanco's finally starting to figure out in year 5. Great signing news when you saw the way Jameson Taillon pitched. They took 2 out of 3 against the Cubs at Wrigley Field. They're playing the Marlins this weekend. They have a great opportunity to be 12-3. The Pirates are so far have gotten off to a good head start, which the Reds, they look like the worst team in the MLB, but I thought the Pirates might finish in last place. They're so far the surprise team of the year so far, and somewhat the Mets, but even more so the Pirates. Now, will they sustain that? I don't think so. I think the Cardinals and Brewers and Cubs are all clearly better than them. I think they'll catch up eventually. I don't think the Pirates sustain this. It's good that they're playing well this far. It's good that they got off to a good start. We'll see how the rest of April goes, and then we'll play it from there. But, it's kind of funny. 2 years ago, the White Sox, which was before they turned anything down, or before they tore down their completely rebuilt their farm system. Last year's Sale, kind of last year, first full year, Frazier, and when they kind of had the full team, they got off to a great start. They're one of the better teams in baseball in April, and then they just completely fell apart, and they were the same old White Sox, and we clearly saw what they did. So for the Pirates, not with Cole, not with McCutchen, their probably best pitcher, and last year certainly their best offensive player, and really for them for many years. When you look at that, I don't think the Pirates sustain that. I think the other 3 teams in that division are too good right now. So far, other disappointing teams, the NL West, that's hard to say right now. The Giants, obviously we know Madison Bumgarner's not healthy. The Giants, okay, they've done okay. But the Dodgers, they do not. And it happened last April. They were played about 500. And when Cody Bellinger came up, that's what jump-started them. And they played well for 2 months. And they really didn't take off until the first week of June last year when they went on that crazy run for 3 months. And so the Dodgers this year, they've been a little disappointed. I think it's offense. Their offense has been disappointing this year. Seager's not hitting right. Puig's taking time to figure out. He did move into the 3 spot. Is that a concern to where maybe Puig is getting too much pressure? I don't think so. The Dodgers are just off to a slow start offensively. Now, again, if they went through a kind of mini slump like this, say in the middle of July or August when they're 30 games above 500, you wouldn't notice as much. Again, this is what happens in baseball and really all sports. Early in the year, whether a slump happens or whether someone plays great or does that, you notice a lot more. It's shown. And the Dodgers, they're going through their mediocre stretch early on, and it's being shown a lot more. And it's not Kershaw's fault. Kershaw has been great. Dominant. Looks like a Cy Young Award candidate once again. But the rest of the team, the rest of the rotation, okay, it's been okay. Yes, they got pounded by the A's. They lost 16-6, I think it was. Okay, so you look at that. They're playing the D-backs this weekend, who the D-backs swept them just the second series of the year. So they got swept by the D-backs. So the D-backs have a head start on them so far. And they did not score a run the first 2 games of the season. So the Dodgers, look, I'm not too concerned about them right now. We'll give them more time. Yeah, they've played mediocre. And also you look at their bullpen's not as great as it was last year. Last year's, I think, was the best in baseball. This year, it's just taken a while. Jansen had a couple bad outings. Obviously played terrible against the A's. But it's early for the Dodgers. I think they get it going. They're playing the D-backs again this weekend. They're playing the Giants again. Undecided division. So let's quickly jump around each division and see the best team. So the East is right now, it's the Mets. The Braves right now, they've played fairly well. Are they a wild card team? I don't know yet. They're playing the Cubs this weekend. It's hard to say. Then the Nationals, they'll get it going. They clearly will. They're clearly definitely the most talented team. They're more talented than the Mets right now. They're just off to that again. Like the Dodgers, the Nationals were the most dominant team in baseball the first 4 games of the year. Since then, their offense has cooled down. Their offense has really slumped. That has been a big concern recently, but they'll get it going. Whether that's next week, whether it's in a few weeks, they're off to a slow start. And the last time they had a slow start, the 2015 Nationals, is this a repeat of 2015? I don't think so. They'll be fine. Then the Central, right now it's the Pirates, but again, Brewers, Cardinals, Cubs, all okay this year. They have not hit their stride yet. The West, so far, the best team is the Diamondbacks. After seeing the Rockies, the Rockies are inconsistent with pitching and offense. They're just an inconsistent team. Don't know what the Rockies are yet. They're hard to say. The AL East, clearly the Red Sox. The Central, the best team in the AL Central right now. It's hard to say. I guess is the Twins, really. The Indians been one of the worst teams in the league offensively. Lindor off to a really slow start. So is Ramirez, but the way the Indians played yesterday, it looked like the weather warmed up. I think that might be the game for the Indians break through. Their pitching's great. Kluber's been great. Carrasco's been great. Each of them have a complete game so far this year. And look at the West, obviously the Angels, the Astros. We barely talked about them. Maybe we'll talk about them more in another show. They're off to a good start again. They're playing well. Verlander has been really good. So has Cole. Morton, I like the rotation. Altuve and Correa hitting again. The Astros have not been dominant, but they've still been very good. They're right up there with the Angels. Both are good. Both of them are playoff contenders. So it's really hard to say right now. Early in the year, those are the first impressions. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next week, even 2 weeks. Also this weekend, April, May, and June is probably when there's the most consistent sports excitement. Obviously, the Stanley Cup playoffs start on Wednesday. Game 2s, so all the Game 1s have been played. Game 2s are starting up. The NBA playoffs are starting this weekend. And, of course, there's the MLB season. So, look, a lot of excitement going on. Early in the MLB season, we don't know what to expect. Obviously, there's some surprises, disappointments. We'll see how much those surprises really are. Like, how good will the Pirates be in a week or two? How good can the Angels maintain their success? Do the Nationals get out of their slump? Do the Dodgers play better? We'll see. So, thank you for listening to this edition of the MLB podcast, and we will see you next time.